I can see the Reddit comments now. You're literally Hitler now. Quiet everyone, banana time has begun. My name is Liam, I am this episode's head banana, and I am here with my biggest fan, Manu. Say hi, Manu.
Hi, I'm Liam's biggest fan, Manu.
I'm also here with Manu's biggest fan, Sophie. Say hi, Sophie.
Hello! I'm so excited to be here with you, Manu!
Are you Sophie's biggest fan?
And I actually have Sophie's biggest fan here with me, which I stole from her house. She's not getting it back. It's mine now. So how are the three of you doing?
I pull my head for that joke.
Joke.
Okay, so a little disclaimer for this episode. I just laughed and my whole body hurts. So I'm not sure if you can see I have like this plaster.
Oh.
No, I'm not sure if it helps or not. Basically, apparently I have like a knot that's pressing on like a nerve in my shoulder.
Yikes.
So every time I breathe in or exhale strongly, my entire rib cage and my lower and upper back hurt.
So essentially what you're telling us is
breathing.
As great friends, we should try to make you laugh as hard as possible this episode.
As hard as possible to like actually have me physically suffer.
This episode isn't no laugh challenge for Manu.
Yeah, literally.
No
I
breathing
did
challenge.
throw in an ibuprofen before we recorded, so hopefully that'll kick in like halfway through, but yeah.
Very good. Sophie, do you have any injuries we need to know about and exploit for content?
No, I'm actually feeling a lot better this week because last week I was feeling pretty crap. I had a lot more alcohol last week, probably the most that I've had in a long time because of my work conference. But this week I've like started going back to the gym. I'm feeling nice and healthy, so throw whatever you have at me. This is a challenge.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You said you are not that great with alcohol, if I remember correctly.
Woo! All the fair.
Yeah, so you had, what, like 3 drinks last week? Is
Basically,
that,
yeah, and then
And like wasted for the rest of
Yep.
the week.
and then I was tapped out. Couldn't do
Now
anything.
it's out of my system.
Well, today I didn't want to talk about what any of the two of you just said. I wanted to discuss the F word, fandom. Which, in case you're unaware, be shocked and aghast. Because the dictionary defines fandom as a domination fetish characterized by submission to a large metal fan. Now, Manu, I know that you're heavily into the fandom world, so we'll start the discussion with you.
Yes. I do like
sorry,
the fan.
my apologies. That was the Urban Dictionary definition.
What? That was not the actual.
What? I'm aghast.
I've been doing the wrong thing this whole time.
I think you might have typed there M instead of N. Femdom is, what you might have
Femdom.
typed in there.
There's quite a few letters to get wrong. But, a fandom is actually, apparently, a group of people who willingly have their souls devoured by an obsession. Now, Manu, I know that you're heavily into fandom, so we'll start with you. Properly this time.
Wait, which one?
Pick and choose. You know.
From the perspective of my sexuality, it's just something that... Oh, we're talking about the other one now?
Whichever one you'd like.
Okay.
Please feel free to
No,
continue.
yeah,
Whichever makes a better thumbnail.
Fandoms is like a cool topic that you picked. I'm actually excited to talk about it with as little humor in it as possible. I just was in physical pain in that introduction.
An efficient German topic.
Indeed.
No humor.
Yeah, fandoms, am I right, guys?
I know, right?
No, but like genuinely, there's a couple of fandoms I'm heavily invested in. So all the three of us obviously in the One Piece fandom, in the anime fandom overall. Then 2 more that I'm really into is especially Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Harry Potter more so when I was younger.
I did not know that.
Well,
I knew that.
I'm pretty sure I talked
Yeah, we
about
knew that because of the Lord of the Rings. I could sort of tell with the Harry Potter. You told us about a podcast that you watch.
I mean, you do look like Harry Potter with the glasses.
I know,
I
that's
should
true,
say.
We just need to
Special
draw a
glasses on.
scar.
Wait, let me get a pen.
Because you brought that up, you're aware that my wife was in 2 of the Harry Potter films, right? Have we discussed this?
We have not discussed this, please.
I didn't realize she was in 2. I thought it was just 1.
2. Prisoner of Azkaban and Goblet of Fire. Because
As
my wife
Dumbledore?
grew up in England and was a child actor.
Do I get points for this?
Very, very well done.
Now, just don't say Voldemort.
10 points for Gryffindor.
Yay! I feel like we should increase the prop rate. I really enjoyed the aluminium heads last time.
Yeah, theme hats.
No, but that's so cool. Like, did she do acting in the UK or?
Yes, as I said, a child actor.
Yeah, I was just trying
And
to
an adult actor still, to this very day.
What were her roles then in the Harry Potter movies?
Fairly nameless characters, in fact.
Wow.
So how do you become a fairly nameless?
That was the most cruel way of framing that, I feel like. You could have said, she
Just a
was in
small
that
or
scene
supporting.
in the background. It was exciting. You were like, it's fairly...
In The Prisoner of Azkaban, she is in an exciting scene. She's in the Quidditch match behind one of the Weasley twins.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. Damn, there must be like a cool life-like experience being on set for like those movies. Must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't speak to it. I wasn't there, but I assume it was as well. Sophie, you're an actor, aren't you?
I moonlight as an actor. No, I've been in a few things, but very also entirely nameless roles. Unless I was in a musical once when I was younger. It was a Korean musical. I played Gretel.
Oh, I thought it was kimchi.
I played Gretel in The Sound of Music. It was a Korean production of The Sound of Music. And
Was it in Korean?
I'm so happy because like I just appropriated your culture, but now you appropriated mine. So we're equal.
yes,
That's great. That's good. It's
gonna be
you just played the
cultural
reverse
exchange.
Uno racism card here.
reverse.
It's like, how dare you saying kimchi? We played The Sound of Music.
Exactly. I remember, so Koreans weren't very sensitive to, I suppose, the whole body image and body health that's going around, you know, the positivity that goes around in this day and age. When I was acting in it, because I was young and because the rehearsals would go until 12 a.m. in the city, by the time I got back home, I'd be sleeping at 1 a.m., which is not very healthy for a child. And I'd be eating lots of like instant noodles and, you know, not a lot of healthy stuff. So I gained a lot of weight. And you know that scene, I don't know how familiar you guys are with The Sound of Music. Do you know that scene when Maria comes and asks everyone, when she's getting introduced to all the children, and she asks, you know, Gretel what her age is, and Gretel doesn't speak, and she just holds out her hand like this to say, I'm 5. And I remember during, I think it was one of the dress rehearsals where there were people watching, the actress playing Maria, she asked me, you know, how old are you, Gretel? Put out my hand, and she responded, oh, you're 50 kilos.
Emotional damage.
To a child.
Yeah, to a
Holy
child.
crap.
God, that's terrible.
It was rough.
Clearly you are a Gretel because
skin.
you've
I've
been
got
eating the
thick
entire
skin.
candy house.
Exactly.
I don't want to add to this, but you were also in a chicken ad, I believe, as well, which is not helping these weight allegations.
No, I was in a fried chicken ad. It was much more recent. This one was actually shot last year, and
that
so
on
it's for a
YouTube?
Korean fried chicken brand. Yeah, it is on YouTube actually. It is on YouTube. We can clip it. I
how
don't
do I
know.
look at it?
I'll have to search it up for you guys.
Please send
But
it.
basically, so it's for a Korean fried chicken brand that exists in Melbourne. But they made a pun on Kim Jong-un, or, you know, the Supreme Leader. The Korean fried chicken brand or chain is called Supreme Leader, and all the bags and all the merch and things is of Kim Jong-un. It's pretty funny.
That is pretty funny.
don't
Well, I
know
have to
really,
watch this, clearly.
But it is also, again, I'm a very nameless, entirely nameless role. not that people usually have
still pretty
names
cool.
in ads, but
Some people do. There are some very famous Australian ads following
is true.
Rhonda and Katut from, was it Amy?
yes.
I will say, fun fact about The Sound of Music quickly. It's really not a thing in Germany.
Well, because you guys are the bad guys, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was going to say, it's not very favorable to the
that doesn't necessarily say anything because we're also the bad guys in Germany. I'm so excited for this.
I know. I haven't seen it either. I just
you
You haven't
haven't
seen
seen
it?
Oh my god.
I thought I
Have you been in
You
any
didn't
ads?
show me.
Really?
I've not been in any ads. No, I've never been on the televisions, only on stage.
Oh, there it is. It's crunch time.
Crunch time.
Crunch with a K.
Why do you look so different?
You reckon? Are you sure you're not mistaking me for the other?
I was going to say, you sure you're not being
Are you
racist?
sure
Manu?
you're not being very racist, Manu? I can tell you right now, I'm not the one with the glasses. I'm not in many. Oh wait, did I show you the right one?
I don't think you've shown the
You
right
done
ad.
10%.
No, I
I was
haven't.
like, that's not you. I was like, you
No,
look very
it's not.
different here. Wow, that was a trick. That was terrible of you. You were like, oh, so racist. I actually wasn't in that clip.
It was a test of character. Sophie's
Yeah.
never been in an ad. We were just trying to test you.
Wow, Sophie, you look great. You did such a good job.
That's so bizarre. I can't see it.
Well, look, I'm sure we'll be able to find it.
I'll find it for you guys later.
And for the viewers, you'll have probably already seen it. So,
Yes.
Fandoms. Eh? What is the earliest fandom you can remember being a part of?
Your definition of a fandom was, what was it? Obsessive?
A group of people who willingly have their souls devoured by an obsession.
My soul's devoured. The most that I could say that where my soul was devoured by an obsession was probably Game of Thrones. That's probably
The
like
first
the
time.
earliest. Yeah, I wasn't a big Harry Potter fan. Sorry, guys.
Manu is distraught
Yeah,
right
Manu's
now.
like,
You put that scar back on.
yeah.
You sure put that scar back on.
Well, you're getting detention.
Or get surgically
the
remove
wizard
your nose.
detention.
Yeah. So I was really into Game of Thrones when I was in high school.
So it was a traumatic experience with your first fandom, basically.
It was and it wasn't. So this is a bit of a guilty confession of mine. I'm not usually someone to really ship. I'm not really into the shipping side of fandoms. But I got really into shipping Arya and Gendry in Game of Thrones.
Did you write fanfiction?
Why? Of
Which is
everyone you could
ridiculous.
pick.
Which is ridiculous because I read the books and I knew that they weren't. I know that the TV series really played up the romance between these two characters. So that was all I was going off on because I read the books and I knew that it really wasn't there in the books. The age difference was a lot more prominent as well, I think. And the TV series made a few changes where I feel like they tried to make it a little bit more okay.
Was that before or after they fucked?
A few changes, just a tiny little change to the story.
Yes, just the tad. Yeah, so Game of Thrones was was my first obsessive soul domination.
So did you write fanfictions?
Ooh.
I didn't write fan fictions, but I did
you
read
read.
fan fictions. I read fan fictions of Gendry and Arya as well. And that's probably the most obsessive I've been, excluding One Piece. Because even in One Piece, I think it's a very different sort of obsession because I won't read fan fiction and I won't ship characters on One Piece.
Though I'm sure like that's a decently sized chunk of audience that I think all three of us
Oh,
are
yeah.
probably just not as involved in. Well, Liam probably is secretly, but like he told me not to reveal
I've
that.
done an entire video where I just read One Piece fanfiction out loud.
Just
It
read
was
it out
awful.
loud.
Only the highly
And it also
R-rated
did
stuff.
awfully. There was one where, I believe Eustace Kid was a brothel owner and Trafalgar Law was a succubus, or was it the other way around?
Oh,
There was
wow.
something like that.
Wow.
That's hilarious. I actually literally today worked on like a character analysis for a kid, so that's hilarious. That fits
As a
surprisingly
brothel
well.
owner?
Yes. Yeah, it's like
But,
deep down that's a spirit animal.
Yeah.
As a prediction, I'm gonna go ahead and say that one probably won't do as well as you'd like.
Well, we will find out by the time this video comes out.
We will know by the time this video's out, but I've had very poor luck with kid-related material.
That's unfortunate.
Fandoms. I'm interested that you didn't have something growing up, because the earliest one I can remember is probably like the Pokemon craze.
Same. I actually have a funny anecdote.
Oh, don't tell it,
but
you'll
how
hurt yourself.
obsessed did you guys get into Pokemon though?
It's soul obsessed.
Soul obsessed. Interesting.
It ran my life for at least a year.
Please go first, Liam. I'll let you.
No, I don't have a funny anecdote. It's not funny. My entire life was Pokemon. Yeah. Back in, I think it was around year 4 and 5.
I think for me it was when I was in elementary school in 3rd grade. I broke my leg while skiing, and I had to stay in the hospital for like a week, pre-surgery, post-surgery. And so out of pity of seeing her poor son broken,
Manu.
my mom bought me a Game Boy Advance at that time. The nice purple one. And so I got Pokemon Leaf Green for the Game Boy, which was
So in a way, you actually played the OG games.
pretty much by accident. I played still my favorite one Pokemon game to this day.
My favorite One Piece game
Yeah,
as well.
stop. No need to call me out on it.
Who was your starter, Luffy, Zoro, or Sanji?
It wasn't. Mine was actually Zoro.
Kid.
So
Obviously,
no, I started with
Leaf Green.
Charmander, like any decent person would.
Well, that's how you do hard mode, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as a like, what is it? What are you in 3rd grade? Like 10, 9. Like, that was a pretty hard game to beat. I remember genuinely in school, you know, like because I was in the group who like were the first ones battling for the top 4, elite 4, and like actually beating them at that point was like the craziest achievement ever. And then like finding out there was actually more to the game afterwards was so rewarding, especially as a kid. So it was kind of like, like since I was alone in the hospital and was waiting for surgery and then like recovering from surgery, I just like I think my child brain, just to like escape that entire situation and scenario, I just delved into this completely and lost myself there. And then afterwards I needed a cast for like I think half a year, and so I just like bring my stuff to school, like my Game Boy, and just play under the desk. And so for like 1 or 2 weeks I had like a grace period.
So to your teachers it would have like looked like you were just doing
when there were no phones yet, I want to say, in schools. And so I had a grace period because I had like the cast on and they were kind of like, oh, poor kid. But then like after 3 or 4 weeks I was clearly not in pain or anything anymore. I think at some point my teacher were like, okay, no more Game Boy in class. So yeah, and like ever since then, like Pokemon became a really big part of my life until roughly the Nintendo D. I think it was it like Pokemon White and Black?
Black and White. Yeah,
it was the first of this installation of the series I didn't play anymore, just because I felt it became very repetitive, which I've been told it would actually like pretty decent games, so I'm still looking forward to trying them out. But that's kind of when it kind of lost me a little bit as a franchise, and I'm just like delving back into it here and then for nostalgia reasons.
It is very repetitive, but at the same time that's kind of what I like about it, because my wife and I got heavily back into Pokemon around the X and Y era, which I think was just after Black and White. And after X and Y, they did Sun and Moon, which was where they tried to change up the formula. Like, there were no longer gyms. You had to do these, like, island challenges. And I felt a bit robbed, because I just wanted to fight my 8 gym leaders and defeat my Elite Four and become a champion.
And how the
formula,
it away?
It is old and a bit stale, but like when they deviate from it, I find myself upset, like unreasonably upset, that I'm not getting the exact same experience.
Yeah, it's your nostalgia
weirdly
kicking in.
Yeah.
Did you guys like the game? What is it, Pokemon Go?
I didn't play Pokemon Go because I knew I would probably get very addicted to it.
I think I did play it for half a year or so, but that was it. I think it kind of like, at least in Europe, well, Germany at least, it trended really hard and then fell off again really fast. And also for some reason, like compared to like the US or something, it had like, even though I was living in the city, there were basically like no major spots for catching Pokemon, or like no gyms or anything around.
Really?
Which was kind of disappointing. Yeah. So you had to actually like go a good distance to like find like only the city center or stuff like that.
So you actually had to play the purpose of the game.
Yeah. So which
and actually travel.
Exactly. Fun fact, you still like Pokemon Go is still a pretty big thing here in Japan. So you do see like when I go running out here, like along the river, there's like these like elderly like men who have like their bike with like 10 phones on them biking along the riverside. It's pretty cute. It's really cute.
Just like farming Pokemon.
Yeah, literally. So it's still pretty big here. Did any of you play Pokemon Arceus?
No.
That was the first Pokemon game I played in a while. I actually got like a Switch specifically because I was excited for that game. And it was really nice. Like, I'm not sure if you read any of the reviews. Graphic-wise and gameplay-wise, it definitely still had a lot of room for improvement, I'd say. But at the same time, just the concept of going back in time and like exploring an open world and actually, you know, doing research with the Pokemon and so on and so forth was such a refreshing, incredibly fun concept that I hope they go down that route a bit more and explore that version of things.
Cool.
We'll have to check it out then.
This conversation has turned very wholesome, and that was not my intention.
We need to bring some toxicity in here.
I'm well equipped with toxicity because I've been a part of fandoms for at least over half my life now.
What constitutes being part of a fandom for you, Liam? Is it like being active on forums? Is it just interacting with people and like discussing about the topic of the fandom?
Well, it's a good question. I don't even think you need to interact. You just need to be there. You can be lurking.
The lurker in
I
the
think
shadows.
the fandom is defined by like a gathering, be it online or in real life, of people who share a common interest, who who gather together to circle jerk each other off over said common interest, kind of like a religion, really.
That's what I was going to say.
Kind of like
so
your table tennis
basically-
experience.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like
he's
my
in a
table
VR
tennis
table
fandom.
tennis fandom.
But I think religion is...
It hurts.
You deserve that. You deserve it. Sound like Chewbacca. Yeah, fandoms kind of scare me because of how they have a tendency to evolve into religions, essentially. I have an example. Are either of you a fan of Kanye West?
Oh, right. Yeah.
I like his music.
Yeah, that's the standard response, yeah.
I mean, musically speaking, he is
Yeah, he's very
a very
gifted.
great artist, yeah.
So I don't know what they call them. They probably have some kind of funny name. But I was once doing a theatre show with a set designer who was a pretty hardcore fan of Mr. West. And by hardcore, I mean that she was dressed head to toe in Kanye merch, like Yeezys for days. And even had his song lyrics tattooed on both of her arms.
Wow.
Almost all the way
That
down.
is intense.
And that really creeped me out because at that point it stopped feeling like an I like this thing and became like I worship this thing. Have either of you ever had an experience like that? Because I've had quite a few.
Not to that extent, but speaking in terms of musical artists and things, people in Korea go crazy over
my
K-pop
God.
idols.
Holy
The K-pop
hell, yeah,
idol
worldwide.
fandom. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it has blown worldwide as well. Like a lot of my friends now who aren't Korean are super into K-pop, will probably watch more K-dramas than I do, listen to a lot more Korean artists than I do, because it has just blown up so much. But it can be really toxic because there's a few.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I too. It gets really toxic because a few K-pop idol groups or members have gotten into car accidents trying to dodge fans because crazy fans will be chasing them in cars to the point that it's caused accidents. I mean, it's sort of like, I mean, I suppose it really even started with the Beatles era, hey?
The amount of musical artists who have just been flat out murdered by fans, like I think was it her name, the singer Christina Grimmie?
Oh, yeah,
She
yeah.
was like shot dead by a fan,
Out of passion.
which is terrifying. Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's really interesting because I think there's so many levels to being a fan in a fandom and being like your relationship with a piece of media or a person. Because obviously, like for example, a musical artist or an actor or someone like a sports person, I think it's really good if you have someone as a role model and like someone who inspires you to perform well, like try to follow a passion, finish a project, and so on and so forth. And I think in that sense, being a fan and wanting to be inspired by a person who has already worked hard and reached a lot in their life, like that's a genuinely positive thing. I think we can all agree. But then as you described, Sophie, it often goes beyond that. And often I think the toxic part, I think for me, often starts when your fandom or your obsession with the thing or person has to make up for some part of your own identity. So it's not something that's inspiring you to be a better person or like bringing you joy, but it's something that I do feel...
It starts to define you.
Exactly. I define myself through this thing, so if anyone attacks this thing that I really like, it's attacking me personally.
Then it's a personal
Oh, right,
attack.
yeah.
Yes.
And it does get like that because fans go crazy over artists. You know, if someone says they don't like something, like, you know, heaps of people receive death threats about just having an opinion about a particular artist. It gets really, really insane.
It is. I mean, like even sports, my team that I cheer on, like Bayern Munich, they lost in the Champions League against like a Spanish club that's like rather small. And so obviously I thought they played really badly and I was disappointed that they were like not making it even to the semifinals of the Champions League against such a minor team. But the coach of the team actually got 450 death threats after a football match. So I was kind of like, that is, I understand being mad and there's a lot of money and emotions going into sports as with anything. But once it goes to like this personal level and, you know, you're not able to distinguish a human being from the thing you're in love with. Yeah.
So Manu and or Sophie, I honestly don't remember which one it was at this point. One of you mentioned that there was a scale of sort of fandom. It starts out as, you know, liking, then like really loving. Would it interest either of you to know that there is in fact a celebrity worship scale that has been developed?
I do
Really?
not, but I'm not surprised. Please
Like
enlighten
a
us.
properly researched paper and everything and stuff.
Wow.
It has 3 primary levels that define celebrity worship, the first of which is labeled entertainment social. So this is people like how I imagine we are, who see celebrities more as like consumable products. You don't really have a care for that person. You just enjoy what it is that they do. It's like for an actor, their acting, musician, their song. You don't really care about their personal lives. You just care about the work. The next stage is called intense personal. This is where we do get into the celebrity's private life. These are people who take social cues directly from celebrities. People who pretty much obsessively by their products, and their style and even their personality are influenced by them. So role models, but like very role model.
Also, like when I read all the gossip magazines and so on and so forth.
Yes.
BuzzFeed
that
articles.
is probably a good example of a lot of intense personal kind of people. The scary one is called borderline pathological.
I mean, it sounds very positive.
It
though.
sounds very pleasant.
I mean, it's not pathological. It is borderline, but this is where
Fair.
people develop deep personal connections to the celebrity that by this stage they undoubtedly worship. And one study used the following metric to classify if you were borderline pathological. So would either of the two of you tell me, do you agree with the following statement? If you were lucky enough to meet your famous celebrity and he/she asked you to do something illegal as a favor, would you do it? Would you probably do it?
Depends. What's the illegal thing we're
depends on what
talking
it
about?
is.
Murder.
If I met you, Liam, if you told me to murder someone, I might think about it.
Oh, so you're borderline pathological, and I should not have given you my address that one time.
Oops.
But that's one of the metrics they used, like if you would blatantly break the law for this person that you are obsessed with.
Is that kind of the stage also where it's kind of, I feel like I'm having a relationship with you?
Yes,
even though...
yes. This is the point where you start fabricating relationships with this person that you've probably never met.
You know,
There's
on
a very
that
good
note
Yes.
of fabricating relationships, there was an app made for K-pop idols. And, well, I suppose the fans of K-pop idols. I think it was called Universe. I don't know if it's still up and running. It became so controversial and it got so much criticism because basically it allowed people to, I think, receive text messages from their favorite idols and receive calls from, like, be able to talk to people. It was obviously AI, you know, it was just like robots, like
Yeah.
just a voice recording.
Oh, okay.
But it was supposed to, you know, mimic a relationship. And, you know, sometimes it'd be just sweet messages like, have a good day, good morning, you know, good night, which I think still gets, like, it's still a little bit too much for me. But then it got really creepy and it would send messages like, hey, you look really cute today, but I think I prefer it when you look sexy than cute.
So we're blatantly sexualizing
Yeah.
our fans. Right. I mean, The Simpsons kind of predicted this whole thing because there was that episode where Lisa was calling the Corey hotline and spending like hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to hear this voice recording of a teenage idol talk to her.
I mean, it's difficult, I guess. How do you guys feel, for example, as content creators? I mean, we're obviously... I personally think, luckily, not at that crazy level where you basically lose all privacy. But still, like, have you encountered people who feel or, like, who talk to you as if they were your friends, even though you don't know that person? Is like, I'm disappointed in you, Liam, for doing this and that, even though we've
Well,
been
people are disappointed in me every video. Let me just search for disappointment.
But yeah, like that kind of comment where it's like, oh, we've been together for 2 years or so, and like now you do this or whatever. I mean, it can also be in a positive light, but I feel like some comments go very personal, as if you do know that person, which per se isn't necessarily like there's variations of it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole parasocial relationship because, like, unless you're just playing a flat-out character, the viewers do get to know you. Like, viewers, if they watch a lot of my videos, they will find out probably far too much personal information about me. So to some level, they do know me.
It's great that we started a podcast.
But I think there's a difference between a creator who actively encourages, you know, this kind of friendly, like, I know a lot of people who are like, hey guys, how you've been, blah blah blah, and like, which is fair, but then I feel like if you do kind of talk to your audience as if you were buddies, I know a lot of people at some point have difficulties dealing with that, other than like what you do, for example, Liam, or what I do, where it's like we share things and we do build a relationship, but I think neither of us, or you too, Sophie, like neither of us does really give this facade of like friendship that we're like actually someone we like that knows everyone in their audience, so on and so forth.
This is actually a really difficult, I suppose, question, because I wouldn't say that I try to foster a relationship with everyone who watches my videos, but I do have a lot of people that I've met through doing Joy Girl that I would actually consider friends now. And they're online friends, but I would actually consider them friends. For example, the mods of my Discord, I was having a call with them the other night, and it was supposed to be something Discord related, but we ended up chatting until like for an hour, just we're just interested in how we're all going. Yeah, exactly.
I do think that's a bit of a different phenomenon though than what I'm talking about. Like that's genuinely people you enjoy talking to and you know who they are.
Also people that you have spoken to. The phenomenon I'm thinking of is where you just haven't interacted with them at all.
Exactly. Which is also what I'm talking about. So what you mean is like something legit where it's you recognize someone's name, you're like, oh, you're in my comments often, we have talked, and like that's different for me than actually forming a, like, let's say, I'm not sure how much you experienced this, maybe there is like a difference also in like growth of the channel or size of the channel. But like for Liam and me, do you read all your comments at the moment, Sophie? Or
I would like to, but no, I don't have time to. But I do try to reply to most comments. So I do actually recognize a lot of names. So even before I started Discord and things, I started picking up like on, certain commenters. I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember so-and-so likes this basketball team. Like I remember blah, blah, blah.
Holy hell.
Yeah, so I would like to, and I suppose that's why it's different for me. I mean, I even start my videos saying Nakamatachi, which is, friends, which is, like, I guess, so maybe, like, there is a bit of a nuance there, there is a bit of a difference. And I suppose, like, with what you were saying, there's a difference between, whether you've interacted with them personally or not. But for them, if they're commenting, whether you've read it or not, that's an interaction that they've had with you because you've spoken to them and they have responded.
Absolutely.
On an academic level, yes, I would call it an interaction.
What's your take on that, Liam?
I'm not sure what we're talking about, to be honest. What's the question? I know what we're talking about. Sorry, that makes me sound like a moron.
Well, I guess my question was how you feel about reading a comment from a random person that goes a little bit too personal. Because that was my initial, like, what I was thinking about more. It's not like something... Obviously, if I get a comment, or you get a comment, oh, I've been with this channel for 2 years, it's so great that you've grown like that. That's a normal comment, and that's generally nice to hear. Other than if someone goes to like this very personal level with you without you... I feel like there's a point of personal boundary that some people overstep in a comments.
I will say that it happens very rarely, which I think is actually surprising for the quantity of comments I get. But usually when it happens, I would say it's... I guess it kind of happened a lot when I first grew the beard. Like 50% of comments were not One Piece or video related at all. It was just like people analyzing why I'd done that. Like, oh, he's gotten lazy. He's just stopped shaving every day. Are you going through a rough patch, Liam? Is everything okay with your wife?
Oh my god. Maybe we are the wrong example group for this, because I also have had this very rarely. But I think when you go into the comment section of, for example, artists or musicians or actors, I feel like you see a lot of people throwing very personal stuff that they read maybe in magazines or something at these people, kind of on a very personal level.
Do you think it's maybe the level of information that we share, probably?
Maybe.
And it's the level to which we are, I suppose, like public figures in the public.
I mean, I guess it doesn't apply to us as much as to like really big celebrities.
Yeah, but we are not public figures.
We're not public figures.
We sort of are technically, but not...
Legally, we would be. Legally, we would be. So be careful, guys.
I think
I understand what you
levels,
mean.
That's why.
Yeah, no, I think I completely understand what you mean. That was actually something that I was really pleasantly surprised by, because before starting the channel, I did have a bit of fear and apprehension that once I start this, people are going to be really prying and trying to find out my personal details, and I'm going to have to really hide everything. And luckily that hasn't happened.
Not that you're aware of, I will say.
Well, I suppose so.
I've had some experiences where people have found like old personal accounts of mine that I'm not sure how they discovered because they have no real link.
Like
They're
a Google,
people
like a
have
face
gone
search.
digging, and it's kind of it's kind of scary. To bring this whole K-pop thing back into it, I think they're much greater examples of public figures. Have you guys heard of this group? I think they're called BTS.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of them?
방탄소년.
I've never heard of them.
Hello, Sophie. Anyan to you too.
I actually have a good...
Not what I said at all. Not what I said.
remotely.
Yeah.
But did you guys hear about the English dude who had surgery to make his face mimic one of the BTS members?
No.
Did something with his eyes and his cheeks. Look him up. I think their pronouns are they. It gets weird. They describe themselves as transracial, I believe, because they're trying to mimic, I believe it's Jimin from BTS.
Yeah.
And they also describe their pronouns as Jimin. So this is one of those situations where you're identifying as a person who already exists, which is like a whole new level of celebrity worship when you're actually trying to become that person.
Wow, he had a facelift, a brow lift, temple lift, eye surgery, and teeth procedure. That's a lot of surgery.
Very
Holy hell.
intense.
A lot of very expensive surgery as well.
Yeah.
Very.
I mean, like, this is like one of these things where it's really hard, I feel like, to have a clear opinion on, because I do think that people generally should be able to do with their bodies what they feel like they want to, but at the same time, I feel like the real question is always why.
There's a lot of focus on the what and not a lot of focus on the why.
I suppose the question also becomes, at what point do you classify worshipping as an addiction that is unhealthy for you? Because, you know, if people get an addiction to something else, to a substance, for example, there is, you know, a medical and legal requirement to look into the health and the mental health of the people like who are addicted to these things. So then when do we start applying that to idol worship? Where you would spend...
According to the celebrity worship scale, it's the borderline pathological level, which I would say this Caucasian English man certainly falls into.
Exactly, and it's just a really... It is a very grey area because you don't want to overstep someone's boundaries and their freedoms to do something, but also that person is, I don't know, would you say like taking on someone else's identity?
Yeah, which is kind of weird. I'm not sure if I would be comfortable with Liam suddenly adjusting his jaw features to look more like me.
Oh, I'm also growing out my hair so I can do your little thing. I grew the beard to imitate you, and I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I've got
It's already
an
happening.
appointment
He's
at the
halfway there.
optometrist
He's halfway
to.
there.
Oh no.
I've got an appointment at the optometrist to get my Harry Potter glasses as well.
He's going to get an injury on purpose next week.
Yeah. Oh, guys, I've just been working out with all my martial arts and stuff.
Like
Had
you've
an
just
ice
grown
bath
your-
this morning.
Yep.
Moving
Get,
to
like, blue
Japan
contacts?
next month.
Well, are you gonna take over my work as well? My workload?
No.
Oh,
I have
well then
enough
I'm not
of that.
okay with it. Really?
What I need are your bank account details.
Oh, that's no problem. I'll give you
Please.
those.
Yeah.
I thought I already sent those to you.
Okay, great. Yeah, me too, but they were wrong. So you've got to resend the real ones.
I have a good
Sophie,
question
you
for
need to do
you.
that as well.
Speaking of BTS, Sophie, what are so I'll give away that BTS is, at least according to the list I have open, the second largest fandom in the world.
Behind what, out of interest?
What do you think?
Harry Potter.
Harry
must be
Potter. I was going to
massive.
say Harry Potter.
No. Let me guide you in the direction that it's also music related.
One
Michael
Direction.
Jackson?
No. It's also boy group.
A boy group.
That isn't One Direction.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I
Oh,
got it.
Sophie said that, yeah.
Oh, did
Yeah. 10 points. 10 points for Slytherin.
10 points for you, yeah. And they're not
You
even
a
a thing
filthy
anymore.
Slytherin.
I'm not. I think I'd be like,
filthy
I don't know. I said that I wasn't.
The individual members are a very big thing. A friend of mine is practically in love with Harry Styles, which is another one of those things that kind of scares me.
The One Direction fandom is a really big surprise because that was something that was big when I was in high school. And one of the kids that I tutor, who is, I don't know, 10, 12 years younger than I am, is really into One Direction. And I'm thinking One Direction broke up. How are they still a thing that you're into as a band, as a boy group? It's really bizarre that they've really maintained their hold.
Okay, I do want to recall my initial information here, because the article I read was the 10 biggest fandoms and the 10 best fandoms. So I feel like this article lacks a little bit of
because we can objectively quantify the best.
Yeah, which is One Direction, clearly, according to this article. So let me pull that information dump again.
Sophie, between One Piece and Game of Thrones, your two, lifelong fandoms, which one do you think is the best? The fandoms. Not the stories, the group of people surrounding them.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to say One Piece because I made more friends in the One Piece fandom. But in saying that, I feel like Game of Thrones, at least to the extent that I engaged with the fandom, we all rallied together behind the ending. Whereas I feel like One Piece, I find, there are a lot more controversial takes and infighting within the fandom, which hasn't been my experience of Game of Thrones.
It's really interesting. I'm trying to look for a decent source for the actual biggest fan bases, and they're all just so biased.
I mean, how do you quantify who is the biggest? You would have to go by sales of products or something, surely.
Like merch sales?
I mean, there's a couple who always pop up, obviously. It's like the BTS Army, Marvel, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, One Direction, Harry Potter.
One Piece is gonna get there one day, guys.
I think by sales, isn't Pokemon the largest franchise?
Oh yeah.
Yes, by far.
By sales, yes.
By far. One Piece, I believe, is the 20th largest franchise in the world.
You know what's crazy? It must be such a different experience for you, Manu, because you're living in Japan. So I don't know what it was like for you in Germany. But Liam and I, we often say that the One Piece fandom isn't that big in Australia. And to some extent it's true, but to also another extent, I think there are a lot of people in Australia and in Sydney who love One Piece, but they're just not as vocal and as, apparent about it. Exactly. Because one crazy thing that happened to me during the conference is I met a One Piece fan. And would you know that I work with him? And I did not know that until it was one of the social, networking events, and we were out and we were talking about the Batman, the movie, which I've already discussed with you guys. And then he made a comment that it was probably the only movie worth seeing at the cinemas recently. So I was gonna say, I really like anime and I recently watched the Jujutsu Kaisen movie and I really enjoyed that. But honestly, before I even got to finish my sentence, all I said was, I really like anime and manga. And straight away, he goes, One Piece is my favorite series. One Piece is my favorite manga. And I was like, holy crap, yes! Which
Did
at
you
this
actually
point,
say
both
that,
of us.
or was that internally?
No, I did. I fangirled so much that I ended up actually telling him that I run a One Piece.
I was going to say, did he then go, and I am a big fan of yours, and I got this job just to be with you.
Wow, that would have been great and awesome at the same time.
That would have been a level of
Joy Girl's
that...
biggest fan. This thing, tiny.
I also have a confession to make.
A confession.
I do have a confession to make. I did something terrible. I
slept
spoiled.
With your biggest fan.
Not quite as terrible. I spoiled for him because
I can see the Reddit comments now. You're literally Hitler now.
I asked him if he was an anime fan or a manga fan, or if he reads the manga or if he just watches the anime. And he said that he reads the manga as well and that he's up to date. But he left it vague, or I must not have heard him, because apparently he waits until 5 or 6 chapters sort of, stacks up and then reads it. Exactly, that's not up to date.
It's not up to date.
So then all I heard was he's up to date. So I went, what did you think of the new...
That is absolutely hilarious because, he's just on the precipice of getting there and you just completely blue balls that entire experience. To be fair, it was his fault. Shouldn't have said he was caught up. No.
I think so.
True,
I agree.
Damn, that's funny though. That's really cool. I think and that's one of the good sides again of fandoms. If you actually meet someone who's really into the same thing you are and connect over that and build an actual relationship because you have the same passion and share the same thing you enjoy, which I think is, again, a great thing. Going back to the more positive sides. Well, Liam wanted toxic, so we went like full toxic. I'm trying to bring it back to the wholesome discussion.
I don't know if we've gone full toxic.
No.
Yet,
Well, one
especially
thing
with the fan base we're involved in. But
Yeah.
yes, proceed,
I mean,
Manu.
going back a little bit to the Japan thing that you mentioned, I think what is definitely a lot more apparent here to me than in Germany, also probably given that I've only become more geeky since I've come here, honestly.
Oh, were you a jock prior to this, Manu?
Yeah, the Quidditch jock.
Yeah. But yeah, things like conventions or this over-obsession with certain things, like this is definitely a very Japanese thing, I do feel. Like idol groups are a super big thing here. People go to like there's mini conventions for everything and collect, like it's literally the term otaku, which is like always translated as nerd, but it really describes someone who's just over-obsessed with a certain topic. So you can be a game otaku, or you can be even a plant otaku if you're really into like having different plants. It's a term for being in that next level tier of a fandom lit, basically, where you dedicate a good chunk of your life and of your passions towards that one thing.
And so would you
Again,
describe
quite
yourself
wholesome.
as an otaku?
I mean, maybe as a YouTube otaku.
Yeah.
Same for you,
Yeah.
I'd say, no?
Yep. Oh, I'm pretty ridiculously obsessed, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Same for you, Sophie, I guess. Sophie's also tanning otaku. She has different
Suppose
types
so.
of foil for different shades and different light intensities.
Tanning with your tinfoil hat on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop the government listening to your tan.
To my tanning secrets.
Terrible.
So I just made a big boo-boo, as you probably have heard the last 20 minutes or so. I just realized that I did not record my microphone here for a part of this podcast. You might have barely noticed it. I'm very sorry for this, especially to my two co-hosts here. We're thinking about trying
It's
to...
alright. We'll punish you later in the traditional way.
Yes.
Oh no, not the banana. Please, not the banana. We were thinking about doing a retake about this. Yeah, but like we were thinking for authenticity's sake, it would probably be really hard to redo all of this, the last 20 or so minutes. So I hope it was not too terrible. It will not happen again, clearly. And apologies also to you guys.
Send your complaints to Manu. What's your Gmail account?
No, what's your home address?
My Gmail account is liam@noneofyourbusiness.com. Please forward everything there.
That's funny. My name's Liam too.
That's so funny, really.
That's crazy.
Oh my god.
Maybe it won't be too bad. It probably will. It doesn't matter. It's better now, isn't it, Manu?
It is. Let me double check. I am recording the audio. I'm recording the video.
Holy crap, I'm not doing it. No, I'm kidding.
Fuck off.
I'm
Fuck
kidding.
off.
That would have been, oh my god. I'm not alone, yay! That would have been funny.
Yeah, nah, it's funny. Right. So, I believe we were talking about tanning and tinfoil and toxicity and fandoms. The thing that I think scares me most about fandoms is I think when you think of toxic, we turn to like hate. For example, in the One Piece fandom, Zoro stans versus Sanji stans, they very much hate one another. The emotion that probably scares me most within fandoms is actually the opposite. It's the love. It's the extreme passion and what that passion causes people to do. I feel like there's a cautionary tale about this in almost like every fantasy or sci-fi long-running TV series that you'll ever watch. I remember this episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer when one of the main characters cast a love spell on a girl. Except it backfired spectacularly, and it turned out that it affected every other woman in the town.
So everyone loved him but the girl he wanted to?
Yes, that is the grand irony. But it got very violent very quickly because all of these women were now pretty much willing to kill each other to make sure that they got that guy that they were suddenly so passionate about. And I don't think that fantasy series is too far from what we see at like the really extreme ends of fandom culture.
I mean, I suppose bringing that back to anime, I'm not really in the Attack on Titan fandom, but I really like the series. I don't read the manga, so I don't know what the ending is, but I do follow the anime. And I'm pretty sure that
Should we spoil that Eren uses Gear 5th? Or...
I know the ending. You want me to tell you?
No, 2 bananas at that point. But I think,
I can barely take one.
but I'm pretty sure a number of the voice actors of the Attack on Titan anime series have received death threats.
The
from
author
the
himself
fandom
also.
for different things. Yes, the mangaka as well received death threats because, the ending didn't meet their expectations or whatever.
I mean, you can be sure for a series like One Piece and seeing how emotional things get every week and how emotional people get about our stuff. I don't even want to know what... I obviously don't think that Eiichiro Oda, the author of One Piece, deals with that stuff himself, but whoever has to go through his mail, I'm sure there is a lot of stuff, really heavy, like death threats and stuff in there, for sure. I'd be surprised if not.
I don't know, like, to bring this back to the complete opposite of that, I think that the passion, the love, is always going to be stronger than the hate.
But
Like,
the hate isn't that
it is
like such a
passion. It's
strong
sort
thing?
of
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
born
the
out of
very
it.
thin line between love and hate, that passion for, this series that I had, invested so much of my love and my time in, and
money,
you
yeah.
didn't,
Well,
you didn't follow
for-
through with how it should have gone.
for that to happen, it needs to be a disappointing ending, right? Like how the world turned on Game of Thrones. That's what I assume happened with Attack on Titan, because people wouldn't stop whinging about it. I don't know the ending either.
Without spoiling anything, the ending was far more controversial than the ending of Game of Thrones. Because I think the people who thought that Game of Thrones had a pretty decent ending were clearly in the minority, while the people who thought that Game of Thrones had Attack on Titan had a bad ending. That was definitely a lot more balanced, and I would say that a lot of people were actually quite okay with the
So
ending.
it was like a civil war kind of
Kind of
scenario.
thing.
Like an LDR Mali conflict.
Well, if the ending is just basically a question of taste and whether you're happy with it or not, then I think it gets... I feel like Game of Thrones is more of an outlier there because it was genuinely, like, there was so much around this project where you could tell that the writers weren't invested in it anymore and and so on and so forth. So that had a lot of, like, the messaging outward was also not on point, and I feel like that was fair to criticize. Well, I feel if you're just not happy with the line, the author of a story takes something, I feel like that's a lot less acceptable then.
And we also do see it almost with every chapter. If something happens that people don't like, they will say, Oda, what are you doing with your story? Like, Oda, this is like, you're a bad mangaka. So I don't think we even need to get to the ending. I also wouldn't be surprised if Oda has received death threats, but I do
It's so
imagine it
big.
probably would be few. That's something that I've realized about the One Piece fandom though. So for the most part, I feel like there is a love for Oda and the really great recognition of his writing and his abilities.
But then isn't it always that people are, as you said, crazy in love with something until they flip on it? It's not like people would send death threats to
Maybe.
the
It can-
Attack on
it can
Titan
also
voice
start out-
actors because they didn't like it at the
Yeah.
beginning. Like, they were probably the most invested ones in the first place, no?
Probably.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I was gonna say it can also work the opposite way, where you can develop counter-hate culture, which I would say applies to a series like, say, Bleach or My Hero Academia, where it just becomes like the popular cultural thing to hate on them.
I feel like someone did a video, I feel like 1 or 2 years ago I saw a very popular video on that on YouTube where it was kind of like the first wave on any piece of content is the people who like it. And then the next wave is the people who hate it because it gets popular. And then the third wave is the people who hate the haters.
The people who like it and then overrate it, they say it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Then people get into it, they're like, this is all right. And then people get disappointed. They go, this is garbage.
Yeah.
So you get the hate, you get the likers defending, you get the haters.
You get the
It's an
haters.
endless cycle.
I think one really interesting thing that we have talked about a lot as well, I think off the podcast in general, is when love for a series turns into gatekeeping for said series. So in case you're not familiar with the term, it basically is when part of a fandom kind of referees the rest of opinions about said fandom and constitutes what makes a fair contribution to that fandom, what you should like, what's acceptable, and so on and so forth, where you should start.
It's another similarity to religion, because in these fandoms, figures rise that have that weird sort of power and sort of start to represent the opinions of other people in the fandom. Like a preacher of sorts. Like back in the day for One Piece, you guys are familiar with Greg, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Greg, probably like 10 to 12 years ago, was that figure for the Western world.
I think
Because
we
he
should
was
probably, for the
Alkin.
audience, we should probably explain. I
Yeah.
think Greg I think he works with Suisha, the publishing company.
I believe he
Piece.
does work with Shueisha, which publishes One Piece. He's very famous for having a golden chopper hat, I believe. He once did a One Piece quiz as well. Did very well. Like a televised quiz, I should say.
Oh, that's cool.
He's met Oda, and he's pretty much reached the pinnacle of One Piece fandom. But like around 10 to 12 years ago, he was that sort of preacher figure for the Western world because he was our link to Japan, kind of like the guy who hears the word of God and then tells all of us followers. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, I was like,
Thank you.
and?
Thank you.
And? Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and as you say, like fandoms create these mini like sub figures, I guess, of people who do have more. I guess in a way, you could count YouTubers in that sense as well, because we're also people who talk about a fandom and have a certain reach with our opinions. So,
According to Reddit, we have too much influence.
well, clearly we have too much influence. I have.
I
Nothing
mean,
to
it
say
is
to
an
that.
interesting point. Gonna start World War III. It is an interesting point though, because one of someone who's a part of our joy, like who's part of my joy fleet, I've read a few times he's commented, shout out to Jobin, who says that the way
Joybin?
that I speak, Jobin, Jobin,
Jobin.
Jobin,
Jobin.
Joebin. I think there might be a line in between. Anyways, I've often read that he says that the way that I sound or the way that my videos sound is like listening to his English teacher. And so, and it was nice. It was a very nice and fun comment to read. But it made me feel a little, like it made me feel very unsure, because that's not necessarily how I want to come off, because the way, when I'm saying something in a video, they're just my interpretations and they're just how I see things, and that it's just how I understand things. It's not necessarily something that I would like to, teach someone and say, this is the way that that you should be reading One Piece.
Was that a Mandalorian reference?
I'm also not a Star Wars fan.
This is the way.
This is the way.
What else don't you like, Sophie? What
Yeah.
are more popular things that you
Yeah.
that you hate? Hate is the word.
I also hate Zoro and Sanji.
Typical Luffy stan.
No, I'm a Straw Hat stan.
I do see where you're going with this, though.
Political answer.
It is indeed. But I do know what you're saying. It's because some people obviously present themselves as if they have the answer to a lot of questions. Well, I think many people, just as you said, all of us state our opinions on certain things without ever. I think none of us has ever argued that our view of things is the golden standard and the only truth that can be found in the story. It's just we share our thoughts on things, as do many other people, though it often is treated for across a broad spectrum, whether it's anime or sports or politics. People often treat opinion as that person pretending like it's fact, when it often that's just not the case. It's different when someone says this is how it is because I say so. I feel like if I preface my opinion with this is fact, well, that's different then. But I feel as long as it's clearly stated opinion,
Which I would say it often isn't in our fan base.
what
As
from
in
the
people
from,
don't-
To some,
as in what in one sense it
Yeah.
isn't.
and it's not particularly an on-purpose thing, like people trying to pretend that their word is fact. I think it can be very hard for some people to discern when people are being opinionated and when they're not, unless they specifically say, in my opinion.
Which is something I think
You can't do that every single
Exactly.
sentence.
you can't.
So some of the stuff you end up saying just sounds like this is the law.
Yeah. Though I would say I think both of us, at least Liam, as far as I know, have been incorporating such phrasing a lot more. I know you have,
more.
and so have I, into my content, just because people sometimes feel like we're preaching when it's clearly not what we're just sharing our thoughts and sharing, interesting talk in the community, and sometimes it's our own thoughts, sometimes it's someone else's thoughts. But in general, I feel like we preface a lot more nowadays with, in my opinion, or as I see it, to trying to distinguish it. But it's hard because, as you say, you can't put it
I think...
before every single sentence, because then if you preface everything with I think, then it just makes you sound like you're a very unsure person about your own opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I learned very early on not to state factual things. Like, I almost never state factual numbers anymore. Because very early on, this is like 4 or 5 years ago in my One Piece career, I did get some numbers wrong. And the internet absolutely pounces on you when you make minor mistakes.
Doesn't even have to be numbers.
It still haunts me.
It just can't be
no,
spelling.
This still haunts
any
me.
mistake.
This still haunts me to this day. But in one video about 5 years ago, I claimed that Crocodile was the first Logia villain in One Piece. And I still get comments on that video with people going, "It was Smoker, you idiot, who was the first Logia villain." And I'm like, this is why I don't say things. This is why these days I would say, Crocodile is one of the first Logia villains, or one of the initial Logia villains. Just
A Logia villain of the
that.
early parts of the story.
An early era Logia villain, yeah. Some fluff like that.
Which I understand, but it's still a bit of a difficult path to walk, in my opinion, because obviously the vaguer you get, the less attackable you are, but also the less you say in a way.
Also, like, yeah, the less substantive you become because you've got to inject all of these fluffy disclaimers into your sentences.
This is like a little bit different, I feel, but I have a video similar to yours that still gets comments to this day, where I was talking about meta devil fruits. Only that at that point, my English skills, for some reason, had ingrained in my head it's called meta. So I said the word meta as meta a lot. I'm still getting comments to this. I feel like this video it's one of my first videos. It has crossed 100,000 views, and I'm pretty sure it's probably mostly people being like watching it and commenting about my pronunciation. So yeah.
I got called up on my pronunciation. I mean, I did pronunciation. I get called up on this a lot because I don't know if you've noticed, I have an Australian accent.
What?
I know.
Manu, you say that,
Unnoticeable.
but like I don't think a lot of people would think that you have an Australian accent.
No, actually, I did ask my Australian mate, and she was like, "You don't sound that Australian." Like,
No.
apparently, Sophie sounds a lot more Australian.
Yeah.
I don't sound like a typical Australian, but I do say a lot of the words like we do. And for example, I did a video recently where I said the name Megan. And because more than half of my audience is American, they were like, "You effing moron. You don't even know how to pronounce Megan." It's just how the Australians do things. It's Megan. And that happens without fail every video.
I get a few comments from people going, "Oh, Asian girls with Australian accents is so disgusting."
What?
See, that's exactly the type of comment. Like, I think Liam and I deal with like a lot of stuff as well, but this is the type of comment that I'm just very thankful and at the same time feel horrible for like female creators out there that they get.
I mean, I've been called a lot of horrible things, but like that's kind of
that's racist and sexist at the same time, and also has nothing to do with the content itself. So I'm like,
just like, you are disgusting because of what you are.
Yeah, I can't
how
help that.
dare you? You should change your race and
Exactly.
gender and your accent, please, if you could.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could be me.
I should. All right, I should be Liam. I mean, I have been growing a beard, so
You could be Liam's and my love child.
You're about the right age and height.
yeah, the right age. Yep,
You're quite young.
definitely the right age.
I mean, I guess to like contrast a little bit, or I think one thing that I think would be interesting to talk about is how fandoms differ, because I think right now until this point we've talked a lot about general traits that many fandoms have, and in general what it means to be part of a fandom and the different levels you have, positives and negatives. But I think it's important to distinguish that depending on the fandom, your experience can be very different. Even in the anime fandom, depending on the series you're into, your experience might be very different. For example, one interesting example is Lord of the Rings. My experience with it has been that
I love that anime.
it's my favorite anime as well.
My favorite
I love
anime.
it. I love it. But like the experience in that community is, I think to a certain level, they are much more tolerant than certain other fandoms. But then once you hit that critical mass of being too different, it turns really fast.
I think Lord of the Rings might have the benefit of, don't know how to say this, but it's what I would call a dead series, because there's not new content, at least until the Amazon series comes out, there's not like new content being pumped into it, so you don't get this influx of new fans that sort of cause this destabilization. It's just a group of old wizened wizards sitting in the corner, like
Right.
being fairly tolerant. Whereas with active series that are like really
it's the Council
now
of
in the
Fairly
public
Tolerant
eye.
Wizards.
That's how I picture the Lord of the Rings fandom.
We're old and white, but we're fairly tolerant.
My experience is that fandoms are much more chill and inviting depending on their size. I think the smaller the fandom, the more like indie the interest is, the more welcoming the community is, because you're like, holy crap, I just found another person who likes this thing.
Yeah.
Whereas with something massive, it becomes like, all right, you like this thing? Okay, what part of this thing do you like? You like that part? Fuck you. Get out of my fandom.
Yeah.
Oh, you think you like Pokemon? Well, name them all.
I'm sorry, Bulbasaur was your starter?
I don't think so.
Loser. Come back when you learn to Charmander.
And that makes sense, because as you say, it's a lot easier to find someone who's into Lord of the Rings or who's into One Piece or into Pokemon than it is to find someone who's into that one band you really like. So if there's like 1,000 people at that concert or like 100 people at that concert, it's like, wow, you like this, you like that specific band as well? That is so random. Yeah, so I would agree with you that it's a lot easier than to bond over something like that, other than you like a mainstream series, but like if you want to be part of this fandom, you better be educated about this. Right?
This fandom has a hierarchy, it has rules, it has its various preachers and sub-fandoms within the fandom.
I mean, that's really interesting also. Maybe something for you, Sophie. Why don't you introduce us, if you like, to different parts of sub-fandoms there are in fandoms? Since you were part of the Game of Thrones one, for example. Like, what different categories are there?
Even in One Piece, there's a shipping fandom. But it's really interesting how they I feel like they sort of merge or they separate into different platforms. So I reckon shipping
Tumblr.
Is really big on Tumblr, but you don't see it much in other platforms. I don't think any of us have made a video about, shipping like 2 One Piece characters together, and I don't see it on
I did once make a video that was top 5 ships, and people were very disappointed because it was actually the sailing ships that I was focusing on.
And I'm sure they do exist.
Clickbait!
I've seen it here and there on Twitter, but it's not huge. Whereas, I think I don't spend time really on Reddit, so I don't know what Reddit One Piece fandom is like. But then that also seems hugely different to, say the One Piece fandom on Twitter.
I think the shipping fandom it crosses over quite strongly with the fan art fandom as well. Like, I follow quite a few One Piece fan art accounts on Twitter, and I see some very questionable stuff quite often.
Please elaborate. What do you mean by questionable? I don't know what you mean by that.
Just, like Frankie having sex with 2 Robins with his various robot appendages. Because Twitter is, notoriously friendly to 18 plus content.
To multiple Robins.
Yeah, because you can clone yourself, so that finds its way.
I'm literally dying laughing, I feel. Oh my god. Yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, as you said, there's like more creative side of it with like artwork and so on and so forth. Then there's more the analytical part. Then there's, just people power scaling characters.
Yeah. There's also, and this is something I think new to the One Piece fandom, but there's like the drama fandom, which like was recently happened on both Reddit and Twitter. One Piece fandom drama has become its very own sub-niche.
Drama in the fandom?
So
yeah, like between figures in the fandom. Like how on Twitter there's that meme about how the One Piece fan base goes crazy during break weeks.
Right.
Reddit is always like cannibalizing itself and other people in the One Piece community.
So it's kind of like, I feel like that's when a fandom has kind of reached a certain saturation, when it almost crosses over into a general fandom, kind of. It's like having like a subcategory drama in the fandom is almost like saying you have like 2 musicians or something in music or something like that. Or drama between Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting. I think in general, at a certain point, it gets really hard also for me at least personally, to engage with a lot of things once a certain number of people participate in something. Because if you have literally hundreds of thousands or millions of people sharing their opinion, it becomes really impossible to like obviously keep in touch with everything, and like only certain things will bubble to the top. And again, that depending on the platform and the fandom you're in, that again will be gate kept, I would say is the grammatically correct term for this, probably, by the people who run said platform, or in general the majority of the fandom as a whole.
Cool. Yep, agree. Sophie, final thoughts on fandoms?
Love it, hate it. I prefer Fandom.
Love
Me
it with
too.
mustard.
Absolutely. I'm pretty alright with this kind of fandom. So we still haven't figured out how to end these podcasts. So,
We're just gonna end it with
say
Liam
bye.
dominating the fandom.
Oh yeah. No, fandom. It has to dominate me,
Oh, right. Okay.
which is harder to set up on my own, to be honest. So I'm gonna do that now. Bye.
Podcast over.